Mining and maximizing your potential is a personal choice that you have to make. At some point, you have to decide that I'm not going to continue to wait for somebody to rescue me. There is no superhero coming. There's nobody with a cape and a pair of tights who's going to come and solve your life. I'll tell you what, you and I, each one of us have to own our journey. So here's the question. How do we max out our potential? Because you're not responsible. Remember, for the hand that you were dealt with, you're not responsible for the environment that you were born into, but you are 100% responsible for maxing out the hand that you were dealt. Hey everybody, my name's Abe Brown, and I want to spend a little bit of time with you here today talking about maxing out your potential. Did you know that you are 100% not responsible for the hand that you were dealt, but you are 100% responsible for maxing out the hand that you were given? Now, a lot of the time people say, well, I don't know if I want to max out my potential because, I didn't get as much as the next person. And, the reality is we're all born into different situations. We all have different level of talent. We all have different levels of resources available to us. Hey, some of us aren't even as intelligent as other people around us, like myself. But I can tell you this, that I'm not responsible for, the hand that I was dealt. I'm not responsible for the things that I was given, but what I am responsible to do is to max out the hand that I was dealt. And so what I want to talk about here for just a couple of moments is the idea of maxing out your potential. Did you know that there's a proverb that says that there's much food in the fallow ground of the poor? I'm going to say that again, much food in the fallow ground of the poor. Now, fallow ground, that's not a term we use very often, but fallow ground is land or ground that's at rest. In other words, it's uncultivated, underutilized ground that's not being maxed out to its full potential. So you can imagine a poor person who's got a piece of land over here, but they're not maxing out the potential of that land. Now, there's all kinds of food in that land. There's all kinds of capacity in that land. There's all kinds of potential in that land. But if I don't max out that potential, then I'm going to stay poor. Now, I can tell you this, as a person who was raised in poverty, I never looked around me and saw people who were less intelligent than, say, a rich person. I never looked around me and saw people necessarily with less wisdom than maybe rich people or better off people. But what I did see was a lot of people who were content to leave their potential in the ground. And I tell you what, that is a recipe for poverty. It doesn't matter where you've come from. Again, you're not responsible for the hand that you were dealt. So maybe you were born into a situation of poverty. Maybe your income is less than the next person. That's not your fault. But I'll tell you what, if there is even an ounce of potential that you leave in the ground, then you are the only one who's responsible for the lack of abundance within your life. And so what I want to talk about here today is maxing out your potential. And I want to begin by looking at what I call 5 potential principles. The first one is that the appearance of potential does not always indicate true potential. So many times we judge based on the surface, even when we look at ourselves and we say, well, I don't have a lot of potential. I don't have a lot of intelligence. I don't have a lot of resources. I don't have a lot of capacity. But did you know that your biggest challenge is not so much resources, but it's resourcefulness? And the reason we often look at ourselves and we don't max out our potential is because we confuse the appearance of potential with the presence of true potential. The second potential principle is that there is massive potential in every single one of us. Listen to me. If you're carving out 2, 5, 20 minutes to listen to this video today, you have unbelievable potential. You have so much potential. I'll tell you what, so many people would scroll through a video like this on maxing out their potential, but you're here, you're listening, you're watching. Why is that? Because there's unbelievable potential in you, but you have to begin to see the potential in you. If everyone around you sees the potential, but you don't see it, then your potential, just like much food is in the fallow ground of the poor, you're never going to max out the potential that you have. The third principle is that often our potential is unexplored and underutilized. I mean, there is so much that lies dormant in us. I tell you, sometimes this might sound a little weird to you, but I go and I run every day. And oftentimes when I run by a local cemetery, I'll tell you what, I'll just stop and I'll just kind of pray and I'll reflect on all the unsung songs that are lying in that cemetery, all the unwritten books that are lying there, all the uninvented inventions, all the business dreams that people took to their grave with them. You see, often our potential is unexplored and it's underutilized. And I can tell you that creates a massive lack of profit and abundance in your life. You don't have any right to blame the government or blame your parents or blame anyone about the presence of poverty in your life if there is even 1 ounce of potential that's in you that is unexplored and underutilized. I'll tell you what, you've got all this potential, and the reason the Creator gave you this potential, the reason God gave you this potential is so that you could use it for the benefit of yourself and, of course, the people that you love the most. The fourth principle that I've discovered about potential is that underutilized potential always results in poverty. Now, listen to me, friends. Poverty is not a number in your bank account. I wish it was just that simple. Poverty is something to do with your mindset. There's a lot of people who have money in their bank account, but they have a poverty mindset. I'll tell you what, it's not about the money in your bank. It's about the mindset in your life. And so could you imagine a person with underutilized potential running around asking the government to solve their problem, asking, the people around them to solve their problem? I'd say that's the problem with Canada. I don't know. I know we have viewers who watch my videos from all over the world. I happen to be Canadian. And I'll tell you, the big problem with Canada right now and why our productivity is suffering and why our economy, frankly, is going down the tubes compared to many other countries in the world is because we expect the government to solve our problems, right? We expect somehow this big bureaucracy to come in there. And the crazy thing is, the government says we're investing in our economy. They're not investing in our economy. Literally all they're doing is borrowing money that my children and yours are going to have to pay 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. I'll tell you what, in order to buy votes today, that is not investment. I'll tell you what is investment is when you can unleash the productive potential and capacity of people. The solution is never in government. Government is meant to be the servant of the people, not the master. And so when I have released my creative potential, when all of those seeds that are buried in me, I'll tell you what, when they come to the surface and I begin to use the stuff that's on the inside of me, all of a sudden that poverty conversation begins to shift. Listen to me, poverty is a mindset. Now, is there a role for government? Sure there is, in order to create a level playing field, in order to make sure that people follow the rule of law, in order to make sure that we create economic incentives for those who will go risk and will step out of that box of comfort and that zone where they're expecting everybody to give to them. But I'll tell you what, that entitlement mindset will destroy your life and it will keep you in a place where you're trapped in poverty. Listen to me. I'm not talking off the side of my head. I'll tell you what, my parents, they declared bankruptcy twice before I turned 10. I remember often going to bed at night hungry. I remember often going into the fridge, opening it up, and there was no food there. I'll tell you, I understand poverty at a very real level, but I also understand that the government didn't come and rescue me. I wish it was that simple. All I had to do was unlock the creative capacity in me. And so listen to me, that takes me to the fifth potential principle, and that is that mining and maximizing your potential is a personal choice that you have to make. At some point, you have to decide that I'm not going to continue to wait for somebody to rescue me. There is no superhero coming. There's nobody with a cape and a pair of tights who's going to come and solve your life. I'll tell you what, you and I, each one of us have to own our journey. So here's the question. How do we max out our potential? Because you're not responsible, remember, for the hand that you were dealt with. You're not responsible for the environment that you were born into, but you are 100% responsible for maxing out the hand that you were dealt. And so what do you got to do? Well, let me give you a few principles to help you when it comes to maxing out your potential. Number one is this. It is about your view. If you're going to max out your potential, can I tell you that the first thing you have to think about is your view? What are you looking at? What is your perspective? Here's the question, friends. What do you see when you look at you? Okay, that's the most important thing. It's not so much what do you see when you look at the economy. It's not so much what do you see when you look at other people, because when you look at the economy, that's important as an indicator and to help you kind of read the tea leaves. But a lot of the time people look at the economy and they're limited by that. They're limited by their look. And sometimes people look around them and they start getting into this trap of comparison. Well, I'm not as good as her. I'm not as good as him. My business isn't as great as her business. My leadership isn't as great as his leadership. And what ends up happening is we're looking at the wrong things. You see, what are you looking at? And most important, friends, what do you see when you look at you? Because there's a story that you're telling yourself, about your potential, about your capacity. And I don't know what you've heard. I don't know the kind of environment that you were raised in, but I have no doubt you don't have to be some kind of card reader or prophet to know that sometimes people are raised in toxic environments where they hear all kinds of negativity, and then it infects us. Those seeds of negativity, those words of harm and pain get planted into us, and pretty soon we have a harvest of stinking thinking. And what we have to do is begin to rewire how we think about ourselves. Listen to me. I'm not going to give you the right to define me to me, okay? I'm not going to give my maybe dysfunctional parents the right to define me to me. I, as an adult, now choose. How do I see myself? I'm going to believe in my potential. I'm going to believe in my capacity. Listen, you will never perform consistently above the level of belief that you have in yourself. And so if that's the case, like my performance is going to be directly flowing from the belief that I have about me. If that's the case, then I need to increase my belief about myself. Now, that's not enough, because there's a lot of people who sit around and think very highly of themselves, but actually get nothing done. You probably have a brother or sister like that. We all have family members like that. And so the second thing that you have to do to max out your potential is you have to discover and lean into what I call your woodwaff. Now, that's kind of a silly term. Woodwaff is what you do well, and focus on that. What you do well, and focus on that. Listen, there's all kinds of things, even if I'm a smart guy, that I could never make a dime doing, okay? I love playing hockey. I'm Canadian. But listen to me, you could put a hockey stick in my hand and a pair of skates on my feet, and I'm just not good enough to make any money doing that. And I could work as hard as the next guy. I can try as hard as the next guy, but the problem is I'm too old. That career has passed me by, and probably I never had the talent or the potential in that space to begin with. So why would I spend even 5 seconds on something like that when I can actually zone in on the things that I actually do well? What is it that you do well? Right? That's a really important question. I just want you to sit down and reflect on that. Pull out your phone, grab a piece of paper, and start to write down the 5 or 10 things that you bring magic to, that you bring inspiration to, that you can actually do at a level far above the average person. Now, it's not really so much about comparing yourself to other people, but you have got to think about your woodwaff, what you do well, and focus on that. The third thing is this. It's all about your resilience. So if you're going to max out your potential, number one, it's all about your view, what you're looking at, how you see yourself. Number two, it's all about your woodwaff. In other words, what do you do well, and focus on that. But number three, listen, it's about your resilience. No one owes you anything. You know, I wish I had a better message for you today. I wish I could shoot a video and say, you know what, the world owes you all kinds of stuff, and the government owes you all this, and oh, by the way, your uncle does, and you just go and cash checks. But the world doesn't work that way. I don't want to lie to you. I don't want to be a purveyor of misinformation or disinformation. When you have the idea that the world owes you something, then what ends up happening is you're sitting there waiting for the world to deliver on the expectation that you have. But when you believe that it's about your resilience, and you're like, resilience to do what? To risk and to invest. Listen, there is so much creative and productive capacity in you, but not if it's lying in the ground dormant. And so sometimes what you have to do is launch out and build a business. I think that for some people, their problem is not so much that they quit too late, but it's that they quit too soon, right? And so what happens is we dive into something, we get really excited about it, we spend 3-4 months doing it, and then we don't see the results that we want. And so what do? We drop out, we give up, we throw in the towel. And I understand that. But what we have to have is that mental and emotional, almost spiritual quality of resilience. I mean, think about Martin Luther King Jr. Think about the resilience that he had to fight for justice for his people, even though he didn't see the results that he wanted in his lifetime. I'll tell you what, he continued to risk, he continued to invest, and here we are today, all of us, the beneficiaries of the incredible work that he did. Think about Henry Ford, as crazy it is to go back that far. Think about going through bankruptcy 3 times, allegedly. Think about losing everything another 2 or 3 times. I mean, here's a guy who knew what it was to risk and to invest. And here we are 100 years later, still talking about his company, still looking at his company as $1 billion entity in the American market. I mean, think about the resilience of Steve Jobs when it came to Apple. Listen, no one owes you anything, but when you do the work, I'll tell you what, the universe will honor you for that. And you will find and discover the beautiful thing that happens when you max out your potential. So the first thing when it comes to maxing out your potential is, listen, it's all about your view. What are you looking at? How do you see yourself? Number 2, it's all about your what do you do well, and focus on that. Number 3, it's all about your resilience. But let me just give you one more. Number 4, it's all about your tribe. Listen, you and I are limited often by the people that we surround ourselves with. Now, I'm not sure about your growth journey, but one of the things my growth journey has shown me is that there are some people that I need to latch on to, and there are some people I need to be willing to leave behind. That's very difficult, right? Because if you're like me, you appreciate long-term relationships. I'm not interested in short-term relationships. I'm not interested in seeing people just come and go in my life. But the truth is, some of the folks who were with me for a season and a reason, maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, the season and the reason has shifted now. And so sometimes what I've discovered is you have to give up in order to go up. Now think about that for a moment. This is not through that lens of judgment. It's not through the lens of looking at the friends in your life and just dropping them like a bag of hammers or something like that. Not at all. But it's about really thinking about, where am I going to allocate my time and my attention? If you think about your time and your attention kind of as dials or as levers, sort of as it's not like an on or off switch. It's kind of about how much. And so maybe what you need to do is start reducing the time that you're giving to people, absolutely, who are toxic in your life and who are dragging you down. You might even want to turn the off switch in those cases. But what about the folks who, they're not really dragging you down, but they're also not lifting you up? And then there's other people who are lifting you up, who are calling you higher, who are pulling you to a new level, sometimes even challenging you. I'll tell you, they hold you accountable. Those are the kinds of people that you want to up that lever, up that amount of time, turn the dial so that you get more of them and less of the folks who really can oftentimes really just be dead weight. Listen, there's an African proverb that says this: if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. So who are the together people in your life that you need to help you max out your potential? And so friends, I hope this video has been meaningful to you. I'll tell you what, every one of you has unbelievable potential. You are absolutely unstoppable unless you let yourself be stopped. So I encourage you to go back and check this video out, listen to it many times. I'll tell you why, because you'll find that there's new nuggets in these videos every time you go through them to max out your potential. Don't let anyone hold you back, and go to certifiedflourishingcoach.com and check out all the incredible programs and offerings that we have to support you and help you. Don't try to get there alone. Tell you what, get there with a tribe, and the Flourishing Tribe is the one for you. Thanks so much for tuning in.